Can the Huskers upset the Badgers for the first time since 2012? Hi, I'm Aaron Muller, and this is episode 20 of the Cobsmacked Podcast. This is a Nebraska Football podcast where we cover the Husker season and team news as it progresses throughout the year. Every video episode is uploaded to YouTube, and the audio versions can be found on Apple, Google, and Spotify. If you enjoy the content, please consider leaving a like and following, sharing, letting people know about it. It helps me reach more ears and spread the podcast. Getting into this week's preview, though, we are looking at the Week 11 matchup with the Wisconsin Badgers. The kickoff is at 2:30 p.m. on ABC. Weather-wise, in Madison, it's supposed to be mid-40s, cloudy. I don't think wind's supposed to be too much of a factor, but in games against Wisconsin, wind doesn't ever play a factor. They are in the Big Ten West as we are. They are sitting at a record of 7-3 with 5-2 in conference. Their head coach, Paul Chryst, is 56-19 at Wisconsin. This is his 7th season. Since he's been there, he's 5-0 against Nebraska. They're a consistently competent football team under him, and he's been known for his rushing attack. That's kind of his bread and butter. Like, you don't know Wisconsin as a passing team. You know them as somebody that's just going to run the ball down your throat. And that's what their offense looks like. They have multiple formations, but they're almost all focused on a power run game. They'll just run it right at you over and over and over again until you're worn down and you give up yards. They are scoring 26.2 points per game. Put that up against the Blackshirts, who are allowing 20.9 points per game, and it's very close there. We've kind of had mixed success on how we handle running teams. Michigan State, we handled their running game very well. We gave up a lot of passing yards, but we either are able to shut down like good running backs, or we're not able to shut down decent running backs, and it's not very consistent there. On their offense, though, they are averaging 227 rushing yards per game, and that's behind a couple different guys. The true freshman running back, Braylon Allen, is going to be the guy we're going to see in our game. He's been outstanding since he's come in. He was sharing carries with junior running back Chez Malusi. He's out for the season, however. So Chez Malusi got injured. Didn't play last week against Northwestern, so Braylon Allen's going to get the carries going forward. He's had 6 straight 100-yard rushing performances already. He is averaging 7 yards per carry, and he's only 17. That's something you cannot forget to mention, and nobody has. Every time he's brought up, it's mentioned that he's only 17 years old coming in and putting up these kind of numbers. You have to put a lot of credit on Wisconsin for their offensive line. They kind of have a tradition of having good offensive lines. It's kind of, Wisconsin is what Nebraska was in the 90s. Like, that's the football that we played. We played get the running game going, don't stop, and then shut down opponents running the ball. That's kind of how they do it, and they kick out offensive linemen every year, and it hasn't changed. You're able to put good running backs behind a good offensive line, you're going to have success. They seem to breed running backs somewhere in a lab somewhere because they have elite running backs every couple of years or so, but you got to give credit to Braylon Allen as a 17-year-old coming in and having success the way he has as a true freshman is kind of incredible even for a Wisconsin running back. In addition to their tried and true rushing game, though, they do have sophomore quarterback Graham Mertz. He kind of adds a twist to the offense. Although he has had rough patches this season, he's given up 9 interceptions. He still has 1,500 or more passing yards. Since he's come in, like I mentioned, Wisconsin's not known as a passing team, but since he's come in, they've had the ability to do so. So they still run the ball. They still kind of focus on that run game, but with him back there, he's able to toss the ball up and get it to the receivers and add that kind of element to the game that you didn't have to worry about before. So speaking of receivers, notable wide receivers that they have on the team are a couple seniors, Danny Davis III and senior Kendrick Pryor. They combined for 700 plus total yards and 4 touchdowns. As I mentioned, 4 touchdowns doesn't seem that incredible, but they focus on the run game, and their offense isn't necessarily dynamic. They're not going to put up 60 points on you, but it's relentless and it's physical. And that's kind of the football Wisconsin plays. It's very similar to how we played Minnesota, how they played against us. They kind of focus on the offensive line and the run game, and they don't expect to put up a lot of points, but they expect to just hit you in the face over and over again and make it hurt. That wears opponents down, and it just grinds team wins for them. That's why they have success. That's just how it is. They eat the clock by running the ball so much, and that doesn't give you a ton of possessions, so the scores stay low, and they know how to win close games because by the time that fourth quarter hits, more than likely you are worn out from them running it over and over again. All this being said, though, Wisconsin offense is not what has won them games this year. Looking at their defense, they run a 3-4 similar to Nebraska. The defense is only allowing 14.6 points per game, though. Nebraska is averaging 28.6 points on offense. That's against mixed success. Obviously we put up a ton of points against smaller teams in Northwestern, but then we've kind of struggled in other areas. But their defense, Wisconsin defense, is ranked first or second nationally in every category, including only allowing 216.3 yards per game total. That's incredible for a Power 5 school to hold other Power 5 schools to 200-ish yards. We were holding teams to under 400 yards, and that was something kind of like a title to hold on to. Like, we held a bunch of teams under 400 yards consistently in a row. They're holding teams to almost 200 yards per game total. That's kind of incredible. Linebackers are stout there. They have junior Leo Chanel, I think that's how you pronounce that, senior Jack Sanborn, and sophomore Nick Herbig. They combined for nearly 100 tackles, 16.5 sacks, and 3 forced fumbles. So their linebacking core is everywhere all the time, and that front seven's going to kind of really shut down the run game if they can. That's kind of what I mentioned Wisconsin doing. They like to run the ball, and they like to stop you from doing so. So that's their recipe for success, and they've been pretty successful at it this year. They're holding opponents to only 60 rushing yards per game. Nebraska's trying to put up almost 200 rushing yards per game so far this year, but I don't know that we're going to be able to hit that against Wisconsin given their defense. Doing that forces the ball through the air. So if Wisconsin is able to shut down running games like they have been, they are able to force other teams to pass on them, which gives the Badgers defense more turnover opportunities, which they capitalize on. They have 8 fumbles recovered this year by defense, and their secondary forces turnovers as well by combining for 12 interceptions with 8 different players. So again, this is very similar to how our last game went against Ohio State. They have a ton of guys that can do a ton of things. No individual guy is necessarily good or like great. They're all good, obviously, but there's no like star player on the defensive side of the ball for Wisconsin. It's just a unit. Everywhere there's guys, and they've been successful at holding people. So they've held the last 3 opponents to 7 or less points. They've had like 7-3-7, I think was the score of the last 3 games. That is against Northwestern, Rutgers, and Iowa, but still, that's very impressive to hold Big Ten teams to 7 points or less 3 games in a row. Their offenses that they've gone against are not necessarily that great compared to who we've had to play this year. But again, you cannot take away from this defense's what they have done this year with what they have been given. Flipping over the special teams, though, they have senior kicker Colin Larsh. He is 81% field goals on the year for 16 attempts. That's such a sigh of relief after facing Ohio State's kicker, who hasn't missed anything in his life, it seems. Looking at the senior punter, Andy, oh Lord, I don't know how I'm going to pronounce his name, Bujanovic. I know I butchered that. I apologize. Andy V is what we're going to call him. He is averaging 45.8 average punt yards per kick. Special teams is special teams. Wisconsin's going to have a consistent and competent special teams because they're competent all over the field. Keys to the game, though. So we're going to get right into the keys. So first key is going to be to shut down Braylon Allen. As I mentioned, he's going to get the bulk of the carries going into this game. They do have other running backs they can bring in, but like I mentioned, they were getting split between Braylon and that Ches. But if they're able to establish the run game with whoever they're putting in there, we're in for a long night. We're in for a long fight. If we're able to kneecap their offense like we did MSU's offense by shutting down Walker, we shut him down. He had, 36 yards before overtime when he ripped off the 23-yard run or whatever. And since then, Walker has gone on to still be in the Heisman conversation. Like, he is probably one of the top Heisman guys going into the year, and we were able to limit him. So if we're able to limit Braylon Allen to not be able to run the ball effectively, then Mertz has shown the ability to crumble under pressure and to turn the ball over. As I mentioned, he has the 9 interceptions, and he's had rough patches when he gets under pressure and he doesn't have the time that he needs. He struggles. And so if we're able to shut down the run game and force them to pass more, that gives the pass rush more opportunity to get back to him. Second key is offensive line needs to hold the Badger front 7 at bay. As I mentioned, the linebacker core is good. The defensive line is obviously good if they're able to shut down the rushing game as effectively as they have been. If we can keep them as bay as much as possible. So I know that's a tall task for any offensive line to really hold them back. As good as the Wisconsin defense has been playing, you're not going to shut them down completely, but as much as possible. Give your guys the room they need to run. Give Adrian Martinez time to throw the ball. it's kind of on him too. He needs to get rid of the ball. He can't be holding on to it for 5 seconds. But create holes for the running backs. They're already banged up already, as Frost mentioned in the week. They're banged up all over the field, but the running backs are banged up, and Adrian has been struggling with injury as well. So you can't let him get pass rushers in his face every time he gets the ball. We have seen the team succeed or fail based on the rhythm they're able to maintain during the drives. If they're not able to maintain a rhythm, then the offense falls apart. The defense is out there for way too long, and we end up losing games. If we're able to find some kind of rhythm, the offense, it looks completely different. So we need to be able to hold the front seven at bay and give our guys holes and time to make plays. Third key of the game is going to be to sustain drives. So playing off number 2, if we're able to hold them back, we need to be able to sustain drives and stay on the field as well. Wisconsin isn't going to give up points or yards without a fight. I mentioned that they're only giving up a little over 200 yards per game, and their scoring defense is number 1 in the country. So not only are they not giving you yards, but they're not going to let you score either if they can help it. So we need to keep drives alive by consistently getting first downs, wearing out that defense, and trying to play Wisconsin football. Like, we want to give them a taste of their own medicine, and we need to do that. If we're able to run the ball, if we're able to even just like pass the ball, short yardage, get these first downs consistently, stay on the field, keep Wisconsin's defense out there longer than they would like to be, then that will open up the chunk plays that we're so desperate for later on in the game. Third and fourth quarter, if we're able to establish a strong offensive presence in the first half, second half will open up the playbook a little bit more. I know Scott Frost had mentioned as well that he's more willing to take risks on fourth down instead of kicking field goals. I think that it's finally kicked in that our kicking unit is not going to be accountable. They're not going to be able to be counted on to make field goals in crucial situations. So we're more likely to probably go for it on fourth down as opposed to kicking a long field goal now. So, I mean, that might play into some things later on as well. So looking at the final prediction, the spread for the game currently is Wisconsin by 9. They are favored. The over and under is 43, which is low. They're not expecting this game to be a blowout game, but given the defenses, that does not surprise me. My score, the prediction is going to be 24-21 Huskers. I think the Huskers are finally going to win a close game as opposed to losing every single close game we're in this year. Wisconsin is tied for the first in the Big Ten West with Iowa, who we play next. They have a lot at stake in this game, and I'm not sure how well Nebraska is going to be handling all of the changes that have been happening since our last game. All the offensive staff, basically every single offensive coach going except for Sean Beckton, the tight ends coach. So I don't know how mentally prepared our team is to play this game, but I'm confident that they will find a reason and a will to fight. Will they still have a drive to fight after losing their chance for the bowl game? I think so. I think I'm betting on the character of the leaders on the team. I'm betting on the character of the players themselves to get juiced up for these last 2 games. Austin Allen has brought it up a couple times in his press conferences that there's still 2 trophies out there that they haven't gotten since they've been here, and they would like to get those back on our side of the field. And what better time to pull up an upset than most people probably assume Nebraska's down and out after the way the season's played out. They probably assume that we're just ready to roll over and die and let the offseason come. But I don't think that that's the team. I don't think that that's who our players are. That's not who they've shown that they are all season. Whether we're down by 10 points, or which hasn't happened much, but whether we're down by a ton of points or not, we still fight. We're still fighting to the end, which is why all these games have been so close. We could have gotten blown out a couple times this year, I'm sure, especially against Ohio State, especially against Oklahoma. But you're not quitting. You're not quitting until the final bell, and that's kept us in a lot of games. Why do I think we can win this game? So if Adrian is healthy, which by all reports he's not 100%, obviously it's late in the season, but if he's able to run, Wisconsin hasn't faced a dual threat quarterback like him all year. There's not a whole lot of quarterbacks like Adrian that can do what he does when he's at his top of his game. The offensive line obviously needs to help that out, but if Adrian's able to take off and run on you, that's going to play a huge factor in the game. If we are forced to go through the air, I think that we have a lot of options there, but if they always have to worry about Adrian taking off on you, if they're pulling too far downfield, if you have to worry about Adrian taking off on you, then that's opens the playbook that really scrambles defenses up. Another reason I think Wisconsin's offense has been clicking lately, but the Blackshirts are also playing really good football. They are without JoJo Domann. He did have surgery earlier this week, so he's out for the rest of the season. Looking forward to the NFL. But hopefully you have Deontay Williams back yet. They're still not sure. He will be a game time decision, but he's been practicing all week. It sounds like he will play. and hopefully you get him back. But whether or not he plays, Miles Farmer's been playing pretty good football as well. But the Black Shirts in general, they have been a consistent rock for this Nebraska team all year. They're the reason that we've been close in a lot of games. But if we're able to kneecap that running game with our defense, Mertz will be in trouble. I don't think that he has the talent to throw to get past our secondary, and I don't think that he's going to be able to handle the pressure of a pass rush, which we haven't. I mean, to our credit, we haven't gotten back. To their credit, they have a good offensive line, and we haven't played well against good offensive lines necessarily. Besides stopping running backs, we haven't really gotten pressure on quarterbacks like we would like. But Mertz scrambles or struggles to play well under pressure. He's even with their success that they have, they've won 7 games this year. He's only throwing like 51% completion and the 9 interceptions, as I mentioned. He only has 8 touchdown passes on the year. So at a baseline, he's not a great quarterback, but he's a worse quarterback when he's under pressure. So if we can get back there, I think that the Black Shirts have shown enough confidence and growth, and they've played well all season too. I don't think that they're going to roll over now. So Wisconsin's going to have issues there. Also, I think that a lot of players are probably looking at their last 2 games as Huskers. As I mentioned, Joe Dolman's not playing anymore, and he kind of seen this coming last week. He considered not even playing last week. Last week really fit his skill set really well, so he wanted to play that one out, and it went well for him. That was his best game of his career, I think. But looking at this game, he even mentioned that this kind of game, this power run game that they're going to throw at us, really fits Garrett Nelson, really fits these other linebackers a little bit better anyway. Those are the packages that Nebraska's defense would probably be running more against Wisconsin. And so I feel good about the fact that these seniors and these guys that maybe are considering not being here next year, whether they're looking at the NFL or they're looking at these staff changes and thinking they're going to transfer out, we don't have a bowl game this year. So these are the last 2 opportunities that you have to showcase your talent, showcase what you're capable of, whether you're going up to the NFL or you're going to a different school. You need to be able to show that you're able to compete. And we haven't beaten Wisconsin or Iowa since any of these guys have been here. Some of these guys have been here for 6 years, and we haven't beaten either of those teams. Like I mentioned, we didn't beat Wisconsin since 2012. So it'd be nice to beat them more than once in a decade. So maybe it's time for some payback. That's going to wrap up this week's preview, though. We will be back here on Sunday for the recap of the game. Do you think that there has been too much chaos in Lincoln, or do you think that the team's going to be ready to play? Do you think that they're going to have enough juice and motivation to win these last 2 games, or do you think we're just going to crumble and kind of let the offseason slowly make its way to us? Leave a comment below or let me know on Twitter at Cobsmacked Pod. But until next time, go Big Red.